Probably offset right now.
Yeah.
but You'll see housing.
All right, we will get this meeting started. It is the City Council study session. It is September 4th, 2024, and the time is, let's go with 2:20. We're starting a little late, sorry. Can I have a roll call?
Councillor Bosmans, Mayor Buell,
Here?
Councillor Woodruff. Here. Mayor Pro Tem Yazzie, and Councillor Youssef.
Here. Okay, first item, organizational stewardship, the 2025 proposed budget capital improvement projects discussion.
Absolutely, Mayor and Council. It is getting to be almost that time of the year, the special time for budget. So usually right here, right before as we're finalizing budgets and getting ready to send out to Council, which will still be in a few weeks, we like to just go over the proposed capital projects for the Council. Again, no directions taken on this one, no action. It's just giving you a preview of the projects that you'll be seeing in the proposed budget for 2025.
Well, good afternoon, Mayor and Council. Devin Schmidt, Chief Financial Officer. As Jose did a good introduction for us, we will be chatting with you all today and sharing about what staff has proposed in the 2025 capital projects list. So it'll be myself, and we have all of the departments here to take you through the presentation, answer any questions that you might have. I would ask of Council, if possible, after we get through each fund, if we could save our questions for after each one of those funds, just so we can get through the presentation. That would be great. So I did also want to highlight some continuous improvements that we have made as we're looking at our capital improvement projects. So in 2020, we all know that COVID created a lot of supply chain disruptions for the city and other organizations, some workforce challenges, as well as some uncertainty in the economy. In 2021 and 2022, we stopped doing project reappropriations or carry forward projects. Each project comes back to Council for consideration. We also split out the 2015, the 2005 sales taxes from the general fund capital projects. It used to be one big capital projects fund, so we did break that out for better transparency and tracking. Implemented OpenGov and have continued and had started a concerted effort to reduce the 2019 streets transfer from for operations and maintenance. In 2023 to 2024, we started doing the budgeting for outcomes to tie expenditures to strategic plan alignment. The creation of the CICM division was created for collating our capital projects. And again, we continued that effort to reduce down the 2019 streets transfer. So for 2025, Council will see a little bit of changes as we continue to move towards that full budgeting for outcomes model, where you will see sources of funds, uses, some strengths or some weaknesses on the projects. Projects also must be at a 90% design to be included for construction. We did break out the design and the construction project, so it's easy for Council and the public to see this project is in design or this project is in construction, and it might be in my backyard and maybe, I'm going to have some construction noise or something of that nature. We also split out some more generic projects to better define projects for the public and council. So before we would have something like recreation improvements, we've broken that out now to show if we're doing a roof replacement or an HVAC or doing some coating on a pool or something of that nature. So we did break those projects out to further define. We will be looking to bid our projects in the fall for future years. A lot of what we've heard from our contractors is some of the timing of our bids makes it challenging. If we're bidding in the beginning of the year, or even the spring, a lot of those construction contractors locally have already committed their resources or signed up for projects. And so we're going to start doing that bidding process in the fall so that we're able to plan for that next year. And then leading into our next slide here, we did further have some project definitions of the different types of capital projects that you'll see today. So looking at the types of projects that you'll see in the presentation, we have a new project. And so this is being introduced in the budget for the first time with no prior budget or work allocated for design or construction. An annual project, so this is a project that's reoccurring in nature annually, typically related to ongoing maintenance or replacement. A continuation, so this is going to be a project that has made some progress but needs to be completed. It is designed to span multiple years and work will be carried over and continued into the upcoming years. And then finally, reappropriation. This is a project that had budget allocated but did not commence as planned. The budget is now being redirected to initiate the project in the next year. So you'll see that through the presentation for each project from the departments. Also wanted to show, this is our capital fund summary. As council can see, we are presenting a balanced proposed 2025 budget. And with that, I would like to turn it over to Mr. Vicari to talk to y'all about some airport projects.
Good afternoon, Council. Tony Vicari, Aviation Director at the Durango-La Plata County Airport. Provide an update on the proposed 2025 capital projects for the Durango-La Plata County Airport and Airport Enterprise Fund. So we'll just jump right in. First project is, I think the Council is very aware, is our terminal expansion phase 1B project. This is a continuation project currently appropriated in the FY24 budget. We're anticipating breaking ground on this in a handful of weeks following the receipt of a federal aviation grant anticipated next week. So very near here. So this is simply a continuation of the remaining project funds we anticipate not to be expended this year into 2025. Council can anticipate seeing this again in 2026, given the fact that it's a 27-month construction duration. So it'll actually span 3 fiscal years as we move through the project. I think we've talked about this at length, but in high level, it includes the construction of a new baggage claim, new TSA screening checkpoint, 2 new airline gates, new food and beverage concessions, new restrooms, totaling about 20,000 square feet of addition at the airport. So very impactful and large project for us. Next up, another continuation project. This is an ARF truck acquisition. ARF stands for Aircraft Rescue Firefighting. So these are the fire trucks at the airport used to respond to any kind of aircraft accident. We own 2 of these currently. Both are aging significantly. One is substantially aged. It is a 1985 model and is our reserve truck, and the newer one is a 2002. The acquisition for this project actually happened in the fall of 2023 using FAA grant funds. However, the manufacturing timeline for ARF trucks currently stands at 18 to 20 months in total manufacturing timeline. So we're simply continuing this project into 25 when we anticipate the delivery that's currently anticipated in April of 2025. Moving on, I believe our final continuation project, this is the wastewater system effluent treatment upgrades project. The airport, if you're not familiar, owns and operates its own water and wastewater systems, given the lack of central utilities in our area. On the wastewater side, it's good to think of this as a very small version of the Santa Rita Reclamation Facility project from several years ago. We're simply updating and upgrading our wastewater system to meet and maintain with evolving CDPHE standards. So we've been in a multi-year design process with CDPHE, and actually just this July, so about 30 to 60 days ago, we received final approval from CDPHE on our design, and that project is currently out to bid. So we'll have construction bids back in a handful of weeks here, but we're anticipating that construction is not likely to occur until spring of 2025. So this is simply continuing the existing appropriated funds into 2025 to finalize construction now that we're through the design and have CDPHE approval on this project. Moving forward, our sole reappropriation project is the credit card vehicle parking lot pavement maintenance project. This is a simplistic project, a standard recurring pavement maintenance project to seal coat, crack fill, and restripe asphalt surfaces at the airport. It was originally appropriated in this year's budget in 2024. However, it had some overlap with the paving of our upper overflow lot that we completed this spring, and our staff early in the year determined that we had bit off a bit more than we could chew in terms of combining those projects in the same fiscal year. It was just going to be too hard to try to thread the needle and complete both because it involves emptying out the other half of the same parking lot, and it was just a little bit too much for us logistically. So we made the decision to defer this project into 2025 when we were better positioned to do it now that we have that upper overflow lot fully paved, and it allows us the capacity to more easily shift public around in terms of this. And then in the future, it'll offset our pavement maintenance cycles for the two halves of the lot because they're not practical to complete at the same time, given the sheer impact to capacity. So just a strategic move to shift this project 1 year forward. Getting into the new projects, our largest in terms of valuation for next year is the parking lot expansion phase 2 project. As I mentioned, this year we paved out 276 new parking spaces in our south lot or overflow lot. Now that that project's completed, we're turning our eyes to the next phase of expansion, continuing to make sure that our landside parking facilities are matching the very quickly growing demand at the airport and increased passenger traffic levels. So we're currently in design on this project right now, anticipate bidding this over the winter and constructing next spring, and this will be an expansion of our main parking lot to both the north and south to kind of complete some infill work around our roadways, anticipating adding about 135 spaces, which is about a 11% increase in net parking capacity, paved capacity based on what we have today. Next new project is terminal roof repairs. This is the west section of our roof. The roof on the existing terminal building is basically 3 roof sections, sort of an east, a middle, and a west section. The east and middle sections have both been fully replaced in the last 3 to 4 years. And so we're moving on to the last section of the roof, which is our west section. That is an aging piece of roof, starting to see some additional leaks and other challenges. And we felt like this was an appropriate time for us to replace that membrane roof on the west section of the existing terminal. Next project is our aircraft rescue firefighting RED 2 fluorine-free foam conversion. It's a very niche project. As I mentioned, the airport owns and maintains fire trucks for aircraft rescue firefighting. Those trucks have historically used a firefighting foam called AFFF, which is aqueous film forming fluid. And it was a mandated chemical that had to be used per FAA specifications. There was no other alternative available and hasn't been for 40 years in aircraft rescue firefighting around the country. However, the downside is AFFF is has a high prevalence of PFAS, which is polyfluoroalkyl substances, more commonly known as forever chemicals. Essentially, PFAS is a major U.S. conversation, a worldwide conversation around environmental impacts and human health impacts. And so airports have been clamoring to the FAA for years, ever since PFAS was identified as an environmental hazard, as a way to navigate away from AFFF as a firefighting foam. But it wasn't until the last 12 months where the FAA certified the ability to use a fluorine-free foam. And is now certified. And so airports around the country are quickly pivoting to get rid of AFFF and remove any of those environmental impacts. So this project allows us to convert our existing fire truck into a fluorine-free foam opportunity. We think there'll be grant funds for this ultimately. Those aren't currently lined out by the FAA, but we're anticipating that'll likely be the case next year. Next new project is pavement maintenance at 820 Airport Road. This is a commercial real estate parcel that the airport owns just north of the terminal. There's 2 20,000 square foot industrial buildings on that parcel, currently leased out to Agile Space Industries. And this is simply a pavement maintenance project for the parking lot at those facilities. So a crack seal and seal coat and restripe of those parking facilities to ensure that they continue to be in good condition, preserve the asphalt, and present a good operating environment for our lessee, which is Agile Space currently. Moving on, next new project is Unit 2110 replacement. This is very simple, just a replacement of a pickup truck of the airport's maintenance division. It's approaching 10 years of age and is time for a recycle replacement. A little bit different at the airport. We don't participate in the city's vehicle replacement program. We've just found over the years that our vehicles have a very wide span of replacement cycles. We have some differing levels of use and impact. So putting them on a standard replacement cycle just didn't quite make as much sense for us. So we individually budget for the replacement of all of our fleet at the airport, and this is the turnover of one of those units, in this case on the maintenance side. Next up is the terminal rooftop unit replacement. Simple project. This is ongoing maintenance or replacement rather of core infrastructure at the airport. So this is replacing a rooftop HVAC unit at the airport that is aging close to 20 years of age, seeing increased issues, and received a recommendation from our outside contractors to ultimately replace that unit and continued upgrade replacement cycles for the core HVAC systems at the airport. And next is the fire station septic system repairs, kind of continuing that trend of just maintaining existing systems at the airport. We maintain a separate fire station and maintenance facility at the airport. This is separate from the terminal to the south of where the terminal lies. It's not actually connected to our wastewater system, given some of the topography in that area, and is on its own independent septic that's original to the 92 construction of that building. It's aging and in need of replacement for the septic field or septic tank and leach field. And so this project would replace those and right size them for the current occupancy of that building. And I believe last here is again, the same facility I was just talking about, the aircraft rescue firefighting and maintenance facility at the airport, the installation of fiber optic to that facility. Currently, that facility operates off of a wireless link for all of its internet, given its distance from the terminal and existing fiber. But over the last year, we've seen fiber extended because of outside development, first to the La Plata County radar station at the airport, and most recently through an easement that came through council in the last handful of weeks to a private entity, our fixed-based operator, at the airport, and it's now pulled fiber to within shouting distance of the fire station. And so we're looking to extend that fiber optic down there and bring connectivity and better internet speeds and tech ability to that station, which is a critical place where the majority of airport staff, including all of our security and fire personnel, work. And with that, that's the rundown on proposed 2025 airport projects. Happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Tony. Questions?
Sure, you can go ahead. Thank you, Tony. The parking lot expansion phase 2, is that existing parking that we're paving over, and I apologize if I didn't catch that in the beginning, or is this new parking that you're?
This is new parking. Yep. So it's proposed to be about 135 new parking spaces. So if you're familiar with, we have two lots. We have our main lot and our credit card lot, which is being rebranded as our south lot. The main lot has some additional kind of open space and sort of green space on the north and south ends of it. If you look at it next time you're driving through. So the intent is to expand into some of that open space that's currently available. So to just be expanding the existing lot.
Okay, awesome. And then as part of your modeling, excuse me, for phase 1B, what are you forecasting for parking capacity needed as you're kind of going through this capital project?
Yeah, great question. We had some long discussions with the Airport Commission about that this summer that Councilor Youssef could attest to here. But the short answer is, in terms of volume, with the work that we did this year, the kind of current forecast goal is we were looking at in the next 5 years, so from 24 to 29, being able to add approximately 200 parking spaces was the goal, to be able to match some of our forecast demand. We looked at a variety of scenarios with the Airport Commission, everything from sort of tepid 2% growth on an annualized basis up to more aggressive 5 to 8% annualized growth through those periods, and ultimately landed at a kind of an Airport Commission recommendation to target a 200 space add in the next 5 years. So this project next year would chunk out 135 of those spaces and get us a pretty healthy way towards that goal.
And that 135 was roughly 11% of new additional parking in what's already existing.
Exactly, it'd be an 11% increase over today's paved parking count.
Okay, awesome. Thank you.
And just to add, because I thought it was interesting, in the Airport Commission meetings, they did talk about parking a lot. They are all over it, which I really appreciated it. And they looked a lot at other airports. And I don't know if you can talk to that. And we are kind of above the norm in terms of parking.
Yeah, no, Councilor Youssef is totally correct. We comped with a variety of airports through the state of Colorado and the Mountain West just to get a good baseline and benchmark and understand where are we at in terms of parking spaces. And again, Councilor was correct. Our counts per emplanement in terms of parking spaces available are ahead of almost every peer airport we looked at, and that's given today's numbers, not even after before any expansion. So what we've consequently seen is that, our rural positioning in our environment, some of the lack of heavy regional transportation and ground transportation options, shuttle options, et cetera, fundamentally leads itself to higher vehicle use at our airport. So right, wrong, or otherwise, we do see that significant kind of higher demand on the vehicle side than most airports do because of that rural positioning. And so consequently, we're seeing that our parking counts per capita effectively essentially need to be at or above a lot of these peer comps. But it's definitely a great check for us to assess that, we're not lagging behind dramatically, but we still have to keep up with that curve because we're still seeing that pressure, particularly during surge events for us, which tend to be during the fall travel season, holidays, Thanksgiving in particular, and spring break.
Thanks so much.
Thank you for that report, Tony. Now, I was curious about the septic tank repair for the maintenance building. Now, are they going to change the septic tank, or are they just going to repair that?
The intent is to actually replace it. So the
Okay,
intent would be to
good.
replace the septic tank and leach field.
Alrighty, and so they're going to upgrade all the gravel for the leach field too?
Yep, that is exactly the intent. The full scope will be borne out when we move through, what will be a very small design on this and ultimately the La Plata County Health Department approval for a septic installation. But ultimately, yes, that's what's likely to occur.
Okay, thank you.
Do you have anything?
Yeah, I have a quick question on the 1B terminal expansion, new baggage claim area. So will we now have two, or will that replace our current?
It is replacing the current. So there'll still just be the one carousel is the intent here. The linear footage on that carousel is going to be almost double what we have now. So it's a significantly longer unit with a lot more space and accessibility. When we first looked at design, we did have 2 units in a significantly larger scope, but through our value engineering through the design process, we ultimately reduced the overall baggage claim area down by a significant chunk on the square footage side and ultimately lost a carousel just to try to keep the project in budget. At the time, it had sprawled a bit too much for us. On that front. So we do show some future phases of expansion would allow us to essentially add a bay and a second claim unit at that point. But we've found that in general, the number of claim units isn't really a major limitation at the airport. It's more the linear footage on it, basically the number of bags you can put on it at any given time, because you can have an airline pull up. Usually a drop time for an airline, even on a large aircraft, is quite quick. They can drop bags in less than 5 minutes pretty easily on there and then pull out. And with the new baggage system, it'll have an improved feeder system. So the next airline can come in and immediately start dropping bags because of the way the belt's going to cycle. It's got like a separate feeder belt as opposed to just the one loop oval that it does now. So at the end of the day, the actual capacity is going to be substantially higher.
Interesting. And then you said 2 new gates. So we'll have a total of how many gates now?
This will give us sort of 4 full-sized mainline-oriented boarding gates in the permanent infrastructure of the building, and then 2 additional gates in the tent structure should we choose to maintain it. We'll have some decisions to make when we complete phase 1B, but we'll have 4 full mainline gates after the 1B space, 1 permanently occupied by American, 1 occupied by United, and 2 that'll be either some sort of common use flex gates for us or more aptly expansion opportunities for future new entrant carriers.
Excellent. Thank you.
Thank you, Tony.
Thanks, everybody. Looks like I'm handing it off to the general fund.
Good afternoon, Mayor and Council. I'm Justin Carlton, IT Director for the city. And I'm starting off the general fund here. For IT, we have a couple of projects slated for 2025. The first one is in tandem with the Animas River Trail reconstruction project, segment B. You'll hear more about that project later on today. But essentially, while that trail segment, and this is the segment north of our wastewater treatment plant as it goes up towards Albertsons, while that trail's pulled up, it's our recommendation that we put in some empty fiber conduit for future use, and also to provide future redundancy. Today, the wastewater treatment plant does only have 1 physical fiber connection conduit coming in. And in all major city facilities, we do try to provide redundant connectivity so that in the event of physical disasters such as a backhoe cut, the facility remains connected. So that's our recommendation for this project. And then moving on to the second IT project for 2025, our backup platform was installed in 2020. It has reached the end of its 5-year life cycle. So in 2025, it's our recommendation that we not only refresh this hardware, but we also go out to the market and look for upgraded capacity so that we can more frequently take backups, more securely take backups, and also investigate additional technologies such as cloud backups and offsite backup. And with that, I'll turn it over to Jacob. And I'd be happy to take questions when it's at the end of the segment. Thank you.
Get mine up yet? Cool, thank you. Mayor, councilors, my name is Jacob Dunlap. I'm a commander with the Durango Police Department. And this is a request to purchase up to 3 automated speed enforcement cameras to be used to improve roadway safety for all roadway users in the community. It's really a community-led initiative. As we all know, Durango is a multimodal community where there are a lot of alternative ways to get around besides using a vehicle. And this initiative was really brought to us by the citizens during conversations about not having enough police officers to address all the different areas of concern. So citizens were asking what kind of technology can be used to help augment police department services. And so we've heard the support from a lot of different platforms and meetings to include 3rd Avenue residents, Junction Street residents, North Main Avenue safety, general Engage Durango events. We've been approached asking about in support of using speed cameras. And also specifically during a couple of meetings with the Animas View Drive community after a tragedy in their neighborhood and some discussions about how to improve roadway safety. And I want to highlight those meetings real quick because during 2 in-person meetings and an online Engage page, there was overwhelming support for the use of automated speed enforcement cameras. During the physical meetings, they had a participation where they asked questions about different ways to improve safety, and you can put up little dots of support there. And the automated speed enforcement camera idea got 25 little green stickers and support, and only 1 red sticker opposed to it. Additionally, on the Engage page, one of the questions in a poll in the Engage page for the Animas View Drive improvements, there was a question for, are you in favor of automated speed enforcement cameras? And of 62 respondents, 43 of them, or almost 70%, responded yes, while only 19 or 30% responded no. So having heard this positive support from these individual meetings, we wanted to open it up to more community members, so we created our own Engage page. And I worked with Clancy, who was very helpful in getting it going. We took a little different approach. We just asked the question, what are your thoughts on automated speed enforcement? And had an open forum where everybody could see all the different comments. As you would expect, there's a lot of negativity with it that wasn't necessarily relevant or didn't tie in strongly to the project. So filtering those out, we found that about 42% of those comments still supported the cameras, and 58% were more negative or opposed the cameras. Most of the concerns in our own individual online commentary had to do with big government, data storage and what's happening with it, and also what to do with some of the fines and how much money was going to be collected. And some legislation passed in the state in 2023 really does a good job of providing a comprehensive framework for how municipalities can use these cameras. It addresses that violations are civil in nature, more like a parking ticket than a speeding or a moving violation. Caps the fines at $40 unless it's in a school zone, and then it caps them at $80. Can't charge any more than that to include fees or anything else. And it provides guidance for a dispute process and regulates what kind of agreements we can enter into with third-party vendors to help manage the system. So to summarize, this request is in collaboration with multimodal safety efforts. It's just one tool in the toolbox for providing a safer community for people to get around in. And that speed cameras are a way to achieve informed compliance, meaning that, again, per legislation, there's going to be signs leading up to the cameras. Everybody will be given ample opportunity to comply with the speed limit set. So thank you for your time.
Council. My name is Laura Rick. I'm a Public Outreach Education Coordinator for Public Works. I'm going to go through the rest of the general fund, then the 2019, then the water, then the sewer fund. So you have to look at me for a while. Okay. So the 13th Street Storm Drain is a new project that includes stormwater drainage and water quality improvements on 13th Street next to the DFPD Station 2. This will upsize the current stormwater system to allow drainage of a large portion of the central business district. We've partnered with DFPD to complete the project, which will help the city meet our stormwater regulatory requirements and also help them meet the stormwater requirements for this project, for their project. The city and DFPD will each be responsible for their portion of the project costs. And while the timeline for securing the funding is tied to their project schedule, we're in close communication with them and performing the project in phases to ensure we meet the funding and the project timelines. Next, the Forest El Paso Avenida Storm Systems is a new project to design stormwater conveyance improvements for areas along Forest Avenue, El Paso Street, and Avenida del Sol. This project is ranked as a high priority as these areas have a history of flooding and debris flows which impact private and city properties. Design is to be completed in 2025, and while it's in the early stages of planning, it's going to include upsizing the stormwater system to allow for increased flow capacity and to reduce the likelihood of flooding. Several design options will be created to provide the best path forward. Are there any questions about the general fund before we move forward?
So just real quick, we received an email, gosh, I guess it was probably about a month ago, about a storm drain on Rio Vista. Will that be a part of, I don't know if that's even near the Forest El Paso and Avenida project, but.
I've brought our city engineer with me for any stormwater questions, so I'll turn it over to Keith to answer that question if you can.
Good afternoon, councilors. I'm Keith Doherty, the city engineer, and no, Rio Vista is not part of that system.
Okay. Has that been looked at or anything at all? But about or is it just like certain storms that impact that area?
For this particular one?
Well, for the
Rio Vista
circle.
No, I don't believe Rio Vista is on our 5-year CIP right now.
Okay.
But I can check on that and get back to you.
Okay. Thank you so much.
Sure.
Any other questions on the general fund from anybody? All right.
Okay, moving on. All right, 2019 Streets Fund summary. This is a picture from 250, 251. First is the maintenance transfer. This is a transfer of funds from the 2019 sales tax fund to the general fund to supplement operational expenses for the streets division of Public Works. Per council direction, this fund has been reduced from $1.7 million to $206,000. The County Road 250-251 project is going to continue into 2025, starting construction back up in the spring after a winter shutdown. This portion of the project will begin reconstruction of the Metz Lane intersection and short sections of County Road 250 north and south of that intersection. The additional funding request for 2025 is to help cover the 10% contingency and 5% construction management costs that were not originally included in the project costs. This project is jointly funded with the county. Their portion totals $4.4 million and will be contributed from the general fund. These funds will be used to pay the city for the annexation of the road, not for the road reconstruction, as general funds cannot be used for road construction. The general fund will then be reimbursed by the county. This project has significant impacts to the traffic flow on a main thoroughfare through the city. So we will continue to work closely with the contractor and provide the public with the most up-to-date information for any changes to traffic patterns or any road closures that might occur. Mill and replace is part of the annual pavement preservation program and includes the milling and pavement off of a road, usually 5 inches deep, repairing any areas of the road subbase that require them and replacing it with new asphalt. The streets in Durango were recently analyzed to assign a rating using the Pavement Condition Index, and this ensures that the streets with the worst pavement condition are prioritized for projects. And this program extends pavement life and reduces maintenance costs on the streets for the worst pavement condition streets. There will be some disruptions while the work is being performed, but again, the city will utilize proactive communications to inform the public of any traffic impacts. Okay, North College reconstruction is also going to continue into 2025, starting construction back up in the spring, again after a winter shutdown, with the continuation of installation of a stormwater conveyance and stormwater quality structures, sidewalks, traffic calming features, curb and gutter, and finally paving the road. Like the 250-251 project, it also has significant impacts to traffic, so we're going to continue updating the public as we can with proactive communication efforts. Alley reconstruction and paving. It is an annual program for paving and repaving alleys that are either unpaved currently or severely damaged, or that will be receiving drainage upgrades. The alleys are prioritized based on their condition, and this project is for paving only. Adjacent properties won't have access to the alleys while the construction is underway, but will ensure that the impacts are minimized during construction by working during normal business hours, using that proactive public messaging to inform the property owners of the impacts. So while the last slide was pavement only, this one is drainage only. The alley drainage contract is an annual program to install stormwater drainage structures in the alleyways to reduce flooding and damage to the alleys and to increase the safety for pedestrians and vehicles throughout the year. The alleys are, again, prioritized based on the drainage conditions, and this one is again for drainage only. So the adjacent properties, again, won't have access during construction, but we'll be sure to be keeping close communications with any property owners and informing them of the impacts. So upon completion of the multimodal traffic calming features on Junction Street, approximately 2,000 feet of pavement will be milled to full depth. Any subbase that needs replacement or repairs will be repaired, and the pavement will then be replaced. This project is again only for the paving portion of the greater Junction Street multimodal project, and it has significant impacts to traffic because this is again another thoroughfare in Durango. So we'll be using that proactive public messaging to get out to the public any traffic impacts, changes to the traffic patterns, or potential road closures. The 8th Ave and College intersection and streets improvement project is part of another larger multimodal traffic calming project similar to Junction Street. It's a coordinated effort to group a paving project together with a multimodal project in sequence, and this makes the project much more attractive to contractors for bidding, coupling those projects together. This portion of the project is for the intersection paving only, and it is a reappropriation from funds in 2024 with an increase in the requested amount due to increased costs for asphalt, as seen through multiple bidding processes. The multimodal team is going to discuss this project and its reappropriation of funds in greater detail during their presentation. During the construction of this project, again, significant impacts to traffic. It's a very busy intersection leading up to the fort. And so, again, proactive public messaging will be utilized. So this portion of the sidewalk improvement program is an annual program for repairs to privately owned sidewalks, previously known as the 50/50 sidewalk program. After receiving feedback from residents and from council, Public Works will be presenting several alternatives to council moving forward for a larger scale sidewalk improvement program. This project will remain in place until a revised sidewalk program is considered and approved by council. Similarly, this portion is for city-owned sidewalks, funding annual repairs to sidewalks that are the city's responsibility. Again, after being presented with multiple options for a larger scale sidewalk improvement program, this will be in place until one is approved and considered and approved by council. Annual seal coat application is part of the pavement preservation program and is a preventative maintenance method which extends pavement life by reducing water infiltration, sun, chemical, and sediment damage. And it's a primary method for pavement preservation due to the life extension per cost per square yard, basically more bang for your buck. The streets in need of seal coating are prioritized based on that pavement conditioning index, or the PCI. There will be temporary disruptions while the seal coat is being applied, but it's typically only for 24 hours that you can't drive on it. So we'll work closely with that contractor for the scheduling and ensuring that the public around the affected areas is notified well in advance. All right, similar to the seal coating, crack seal is a primary preventative maintenance method used to extend the life of pavement. This is an annual program to purchase and apply crack seal products to the streets as prioritized by that PCI, the Pavement Conditioning Index. Again, minimal impacts due to the areas impacted, and we're going to be using public messaging to inform those areas that are impacted, very similar to to seal coat, very temporary impacts. Okay, annual program for the installation of concrete ADA ramps. These installations take place in conjunction with pavement replacement projects, which are prioritized based on the PCI, and they increase safety for pedestrians and those living with disabilities attempting to cross the streets. While not all the ramps in the city are being updated at the same time, this program ensures continual replacement of all the ramps in the city until they're all in compliance with ADA standards. Okay, 2019 fund questions.
Yeah, thank you for your presentation. I have a few. The 250, 251, and I guess the North College project too, you talked about winter shutdowns. Will the, obviously college is still open now, but will the 250, 251 access be reopened during the shutdown, or will that remain closed?
The plan is to, since the curb and gutter is already in place there, they are wanting to pave before the asphalt plants shut down, which is usually around Thanksgiving. So it should be reopened by Thanksgiving, and that road will be available through the winter. That's the plan. And then starting again next spring, we will look at, just depending on where the pipelines need to be installed in the road, either shutting down the entire road again from where basically the fire station is to that intersection, or attempting to have one lane alternating traffic through there.
Excellent. And then for both of those projects, are you anticipating the completion, like totally done in 2025?
That's what's proposed.
Okay. On the alley projects, we get questions asked a lot, like about people's alleys. Where is there like a list of where, because you said you had a priority list,
right?
Is that public for people to see where their alley falls in?
Keith, is that public information? No, it's not public.
Okay, just maybe, I don't know, could be something to refer so people can reference and be like, oh, yours is the very end or near the top or whatever. Do we use those, because it's an annual project?
Right.
Do we use those funds up every year? Have we in the past?
Maybe. Joey's coming up to help me answer that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Joey Medina, Public Works Operations Manager, Council Mayor. Depending on the severity of the alleys and how much infrastructure has to be done on it will depend if the funds are used up within the year that the alley is chosen in. So it really comes down to the severity of the alleys and the base and infrastructure that has to be replaced prior to paving of the alley and drainage.
Sure, but most of the time we're using up that annual fund.
We try. It really comes back as to what the bids are going to be from the contractors and how much work has to be done on the alley. So there, in 2024, we were not able to use any funds because the bids came back way higher than the amount of funds that we had. So there was no alleys that were worked on this year.
So if the fund, if it's more expensive, is the amount staying the same for next year?
So there has been some adjustments made to the fund. We'll have to see as we get into, as we receive quotes into 2025 as to if we're going to have enough funds to maintain some of those alley areas.
So for those alley projects, I would just say as one counselor, like it might be good to, make those a little bit bigger so it is an important project that we're obviously getting those up to date and
It is, and our goal is to use as much funds as possible to get all those alleys taken care of. And I know you talked about the prioritization list earlier. We do have that available. It's just not available to the public at
no,
this
it's
point.
fine. Perfect. And then the sidewalk improvement program, that's also been kind of a hot topic, not being utilized for, and it was said it will be approved by council when will we see a new program to be approved by council potentially?
Hi, Keith Doherty again, city engineer. Yeah, we worked on 50/50 sidewalk last year and the bids came in triple our budget. And I know we had appropriated 100,000 that year. And our bids came in almost at 300,000. We went back and decided that we need to relook at this program as a whole, try and get the best bang for our buck, and potentially have a multi-pronged approach. We wanted to base that off of some the data that's kind of related to the PCI. They actually pick up some sidewalk data along with that, and we wanted to work with multimodal GIS and either come up with a variety of ways to attack this with different funds, still having maybe a single family residential option, maybe a commercial option, and then like a repair option. Because we're getting a lot of complaints now with SeeClickFix. So we have kind of multiple things going on that we're trying to address. And we just got the PCI data back that we're still sorting through. So still more info to come on how we're going to approach that.
Love that idea of multi-pronged approach and being creative and trying to get it. I think alleyways, sidewalks, and then the ADA ramp program too. Same question. Are we utilizing all the funds every year to get them updated, or are funds still because it's too high of a
So the goal with the ADA is to try to bind that together with other street projects that we have going on. So maybe we can get the best bang for our buck. We're actually doing mill and overlays. We can actually have ADA side ramps put in at the same time. So the goal is to try to use all those funds as we're doing roadways and along installing ADA ramps as well.
Excellent. Thank you.
I just wanted to come back to the alleyway real quick. Since that's an annual project that we're doing consecutively, are we reappropriating the money from 2024 into next year in addition to more funds? Or are we just appropriating a little bit more money because the bids came in higher?
So no funding from 2024 will be appropriated into 2025. Those are fundings that were brought forward in the new budget for 2025. So funding was not carried forward from 2024 to 2025.
Okay, and where was that just part of like the 2019 general? It just goes back into the 2019 fund?
It'll go back into the fund, yes.
Okay, is there any conversation around like maybe reappropriating some of that money into alleyways just so we can kind of may have more impact?
Yeah, and I think trying to get bids earlier as we talked into the fall to see where we're going to go into that following year to see what those bids are going to come back at will help us budget better moving forward and trying to get some of those alleyways done. I know there is some specific alleyways that we are working on right now, but there's a lot of infrastructure that needs to take place prior to even getting that paved or getting drainage done. So as we move forward in the future, I'll make sure we look at that a little bit harder and probably allocate more funds to the alley.
Okay, thank you so much.
Anyone else comments? Okay.
Had to bring the subject matter experts with me. Okay. All right, moving on to the water fund. The first project is a continuation from 2024. The 3 million gallon tank at the College Mesa Water Treatment Plant is continuing into 2025, and it's a critical project to ensure that the plant's 7 million gallon tank can be rehabbed as soon as possible. The State Health Department, or CDPHE, requires water plants to have the ability to take a disinfection contact chamber offline for maintenance or repair by having a second adequately sized disinfection contact chamber available. Building an auxiliary tank, or this 3 million gallon tank, will meet this requirement. It's going to add operational flexibility, add finished water capacity, and it allows us to take the 7 million gallon tank offline for full rehabilitation. The design is currently at 90%, and we're awaiting the completion of some computer modeling to ensure that the design meets the disinfection requirements. The design will then go through a 90-day review period and approval process from CDPHE, And the project is going to be phased, with the first phase of construction in 2025 and the second in 2026. There will be impacts to the plant's neighbors during construction, but typical noise and dust mitigation efforts will be taken to limit our impact to our neighbors. Completing this project in a timely manner is crucial to ensuring the rehab of the 7 million gallon tank can begin as soon as possible. And next, 7 million gallon tank rehab. As mentioned in the last slide, the 60-year-old 7 million gallon tank at the water plant needs a full rehabilitation. A recent comprehensive tank inspection revealed the interior coating in the tank is failing, which is a sanitary defect according to the Colorado primary drinking water regulations. This means that it needs to be replaced as soon as possible to meet drinking water regulations. The project is for the design of the rehabilitation and will include replacement of corroded internal steel structure, removal of the interior coating, performing any required repairs to the tank's interior, recoating the inside, and installing features to improve the tank's performance and safety, as well as bring it up to city tank standards. The design of the rehab can be completed in 2025, but the rehab can't start until the 3 million gallon tank is commissioned in 2027. I should note that although that the interior lining is failing, it does not mean that the water inside the tank is not safe to drink. There's intentionally chlorine residual inside the tank to help protect it. And it just needs to be replaced as soon as possible because it could lead to corrosion, which could lead to a leak inside the tank. Okay, it's the College Mesa Water Treatment Plant Train 1 improvements. The original treatment train was constructed in 1956. It's been online ever since, and it has reached the end of its useful service life. It's undersized to treat the water year-round without the help of the other treatment train, and the concrete structures are literally crumbling apart. The 2021 Water Master Plan identified the need to expand the water plant from 14 million gallons a day to 21.5 million gallons a day to meet projected future water demands. Improvements to Train 1 or T1 can help achieve this by expanding sections of the treatment train. Excuse me. And we've begun preliminary engineering and a feasibility study to determine how to best achieve improvements to Train 1 while maintaining daily operations of the plant, as it's the only water plant that we have and it can't be taken offline. This project will fund the design and engineering in 2025 and will outline the phasing for improvements moving forward. Florida Pipe Rehab. Our drinking water comes from the Florida River through a 9-mile gravity pipeline. The pipeline was constructed in the early 1900s and has been replaced in sections over the years, with a section of wood stave pipe being removed just a few years ago. The pipeline is a critical piece of infrastructure that's aging and has experienced several breaks in the last few years, which have impacted our operations for as long as 3 weeks while the repairs were completed. This is a reappropriation of funds from 2024 because of the scope of the project has increased, not to just rehab a few sections of the pipe, but to complete an entire pipe conditioning assessment of the entire 9 miles of pipe to determine the worst areas, identify the pipe materials, as it's a bit of a Frankenstein with different sizes and materials throughout it, and to recommend the best methods for rehabbing the entire pipe so that we can ensure reliable delivery of Florida River water to the plant. During the construction of the project, which is estimated to begin in 2026, the pipeline will need to be taken offline for rehab. So we'll be utilizing the Animas River as our source water for drinking water during that time. And we'll be utilizing the recently completed pre-oxidation system to help treat this water during the winter. The Florida pipeline runs through a drainage area in Edgemont Ranch, and over time, the earth covering a section of the pipeline has been washed away, exposing the pipeline and undermining the ground beneath it. This project will restore the drainage channel grade under the pipe and armor the surrounding areas to maintain soil over the pipeline and prevent further erosion from exposing the pipe. The project will occur in a challenging area within this drainage channel, so the city and the contractor will determine the best methods to prevent further damage to this channel during construction. The water line along Highway 160 was installed in the 1960s and is in extremely poor condition. We've experienced several breaks each year on the section between the 550-160 intersection and Tech Center Drive leading up to the Recycle Center. This project is a reappropriation of funds from 2024. The original request was for $2.2 million for construction. However, the preliminary designs did not reach 90% before they were determined to be non-constructible due to the difficult location of the water line being underneath the concrete panel highway, in a congested utility corridor, in CDOT right-of-way, at the base of a really steep slope, right along the highway. So a new design is needed to account for these challenges and to incorporate alternative methods of pipe replacement and to ensure that it reaches 90% design for construction in 2026. This project is a continuation from design completion in 2024, with construction occurring in 2025. The Rockridge Pump Station was built in 1990 and has reached the end of its useful service life. The pump station is undersized and it lacks the necessary updated equipment to enable us to take the Rockridge tank offline for needed interior rehabilitation. The 2021 master plan identified this pump station as needing to be replaced with a station with increased capacity, modern controls, and backup power generation so we can continue to deliver water even during power outages. A new pump station is a prefabricated building that will be placed next to the existing pump station. And it's going to include updated pump controls and communication systems that will be, they're standard in our other pump stations. Construction will occur along a popular walking path and in the middle of a very quiet neighborhood. So this is going to impact the nearby residents. Again, typical noise and dust mitigation efforts are going to take place, and the neighborhood will be informed well in advance of the start of construction. Wildcat Tank needs full rehabilitation to meet drinking water regulations and to bring it up to the city water tank standards. Phase 1 of the tank improvements were completed last fall, which included the installation of an isolation valve halfway up to the tank and running power to the tank site. A recent comprehensive tank inspection revealed that the interior tank coating is failing, which, like in the 7 million gallon tank, requires removal of the old coating, repairs to the internal steel structure, and recoating the inside. Phase 2 will include full interior and exterior rehabilitation, as well as the addition of our standard tank components, which are a new safety ladder and cage, security cage, handrails and roof hatches, a tank mixer, sampling ports, level sensors, communications, a control panel, and power to run it all. This project is dependent upon CDPHE approval of the design, and it's dependent upon Twin Buttes developer upsizing the water main on Highway 160 from Tech Center up toward the gas station. This will allow us to take the tank offline, as this tank is currently needed to supply water to the Twin Buttes pump station to fill Twin Buttes tank. The developer is currently in the design process for upsizing the line, and the tank's rehab design is expected to be approved quickly by CDPHE because it's the same design as other tanks we've already done. All right, Durango Mesa Park Access Road has a planned 8-inch water line running to the top of the mesa to supply potable water to the mesa. Public Works has the opportunity to upsize this main to a larger size, and this would support a future opportunity to loop the water system to Grandview Tank, which serves Three Springs and Mercy Hospital. Looping this area of the water system would ultimately provide redundancy to a critical portion of our water system, which currently relies on a single pump station to deliver water to all of Three Springs. We'll need to analyze future pumping capacity needs based on our existing pump station and future potential equipment upgrades. However, there's advantages to purchasing the pipe now because material and installation costs just keep rising. All right, Sky Ridge tanks are twin 10,000 gallon tanks that are buried on the hillside above Sky Ridge neighborhood. They're just east of the above ground Hillcrest tanks. They are square concrete tanks and have liners inside. And if you can see the picture here, this is a kind of an optical illusion, but the water line is right here. And the liner is just dipped right below the water surface. So water's getting up and on the outside of it. And it's leaking to the ground outside of the tanks, which is saturating the Skyline Trail just below. So we did make repairs to this in fall of 2023, but the repairs have failed. So the tank inspector came in and deemed both liners to be at the end of their useful service life. And the city's already under contract with Riley Industrial for tank repair and maintenance. And they're able to replace the liners early in spring of 2025 before the water demand increases for next summer. So the project is timely as we need to stop the leakage from the tank as soon as possible, of course, but the work needs to be performed when water demands are low, so we can take one of the tanks offline at a time. Water fund questions?
Yeah, just a couple. Thank you so much. It's a ton of information. The 3 million gallon tank, after that 7 million gallon tank is completed with the rehab project, will that just increase our capacity? Will that be used as a?
Yep.
As a?
There's multiple ways that we can use that. So we've engineered it to make sure we can use it in any situation, whether we're just using the 3 million gallon tank or just using the 7 or using them together. So there's a design in place, inlets and outlets in place that allow for the usage, but it is going to be, it's designed to create more time with the disinfectant. So whereas the 7 million gallon tank, that volume is taking care of that right now, we're going to be able to do it in a 3 million gallon tank because there's a maze inside of it that the water has to go through.
Okay, awesome. Thank you. And then sorry if I missed it, but the Florida River Pipeline, how long do we anticipate that project potentially taking that we're just going to be taking from the Animas?
For the construction or for the design?
Well, I guess, either one. I know we're not close with the design yet, but do we have any sort of forecast about how long that might?
Well, it's estimated the design will be in 2025, construction in 2026, but for the actual timeline of the project itself, while we have to shut the pipeline down, I couldn't tell you, but I would guess 1 to 2 months.
Okay.
But it just depends on what method they're going to use for rehab.
Sure. Okay. Well, I knew it was probably too early to be able to tell, but I just wanted to serve if you guys were wondering. All right. Thank you.
Yep. Any other questions? Yeah.
Oops, thank you. I was curious about the tank liners. What's their lifespan?
Their lifespan is approximately 20 years.
20 years?
Yeah.
Now, I was just thinking, is there any way to use the tank liners in the existing tanks that need repairs? Because, we're going to put epoxy in the tanks that need repairs. Would it be better to do tank liners if that's possible?
All of our water tanks in our water system have, I should say it this way, Sky Ridge tanks are the only ones that have that liner in them. And that's just the way that particular tank was designed. The rest of the tanks around the system are steel tanks, and those are always coated with that type of epoxy. However, that type of epoxy is specifically for water tanks.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, moving on. Sewer fund. All right. On 8th Ave between 7th and 8th Streets, there's a privately owned 4-inch sewer main that's servicing all 7 of the homes on the east side of the street, and that's the red line. So this is the privately owned 4-inch sewer line, and all the green ones are larger city-owned, whereas the blue lines are water lines. The project is going to abandon the existing privately owned sewer line and install a city-owned 8-inch sewer main from 8th Street down to the nearest manhole at 7th Street. During construction, sections of the residents' concrete driveways will need to be removed, and other utilities on 8th Avenue are going to need to be potholed to ensure they're avoided during trenching. But all the concrete will be replaced after the construction, and the other utility locations will be confirmed with that potholing. This project will provide adequately sized sewer pipe to service all those 7 homes, and it's going to allow for proper sewer maintenance equipment to be able to enter the pipe. And it's going to include it in the city's sewer system rather than have it be a private pipe. The sewer system near Chapman Hill Roundabout is a mix of 8-inch and 10-inch pipes leading into a manhole in the middle of the roundabout. So these 2 pipes leading into this manhole, those are differently sized, and this one is a different size going out leading up to the lift station over here. So from that manhole, the wastewater from Riverview neighborhoods and all along Florida is stuffed into a 6-inch pipe that flows west and north to the Island Cove lift station. This creates a bottleneck and can lead to clogging in the sewer lines. The 6-inch line needs to be upgraded to or upsized to a 10-inch to remove this restriction and allow for proper maintenance of the sewer lines, including rotting and camera work. And it's going to reduce the likelihood of clogs and sanitary sewer overflows. There are 7 mobile homes sitting right on top of the existing sewer line, so there's an opportunity to use alternative pipe placement like pipe bursting technology to replace the line going underneath those homes. Their sewer service would, of course, be interrupted during this time, but the city has established mitigation efforts like offering rec center passes and providing temporary restrooms during the time of construction. The affected areas will, of course, be notified well in advance of construction and are going to be kept up to date on all construction progress, and the public will be notified of any impacts on Florida Road. Annual lift station replacement. This is an annual replacement program for sewer lift stations which pump wastewater from low areas to high areas so they can continue their gravity feed to the wastewater treatment plant. The city has 17 lift stations in our service area, and they typically have a useful service life of about 15 to 20 years. So this allows for like-in-kind replacements of 1 lift station per year and will reduce the maintenance costs of upkeeping the aging infrastructure, reducing the call-outs for the staff for emergencies, and reduce the risk for sanitary sewer overflows. Because they're like-in-kind replacements, we don't need to go through an approval process with CDPHE. However, there are historically long lead times with procuring these lift stations, so we need to maintain constant communication with the supplier and ensure that we order them early in the year. Santa Rita Water Reclamation Facility's concrete infrastructure is lined to protect it from sulfuric acid, which is a byproduct of wastewater treatment processes. The liners that were installed when the plant was upgraded were not installed properly and are tearing off in sheets from the walls, leaving the concrete behind them susceptible to corrosion. This program would replace the liners around the plant as needed, and the sewer collections crew can piggyback off of the mobilization fees from this contractor to allow them to reline manholes around town while the contractor is in town. The priority is going to be placed on those areas in highest need, and those will be identified by the staff at the treatment plant and in the sewer collections crews. The cities also are already under contract with SpectraShield to provide the service, and the cost estimates that we have are accurate because we have pricing from previous years. The areas that are being relined will need to be taken offline, which temporarily reduces our treatment capacity. However, the wastewater treatment plant staff are able to shift operations to accommodate the required maintenance and still meet CDPHE regulations. The wastewater plant's 3 existing primary sludge pumps are oversized, causing frequent starts and stops, which increase electrical costs, wear and tear on the pumps, and leads to operational issues for the plant's digesters. This leads to insufficient treatment and more time that the operators spend fixing things. This project is a continuation from 2024, where a notice of intent to award has been given to a contractor, and the prep work might start as early as this fall. The pump procurement can take 3 to 4 months, but we're lined up to receive the pumps at the end of the year, allowing us to start installation at the beginning of 2025 and completing in the spring. It's indoor work, so It can be done during the winter months, and we already have approval from CDPHE, and swapping the pumps for smaller ones is going to reduce the electrical costs, increase the pump and operational efficiencies, decrease the odors from the facilities by providing sufficient treatment, and it's going to reduce the staff time that they spend fixing things. Last but not least, the existing septic receiving station at the wastewater plant doesn't function as it was intended. There's not enough room to fit more than one septic tank or septic hauling truck at a time, which affects the haulers' schedules, and the collections and distribution crews can't effectively unload our Vector trucks there. The debris screen that's in place was too small and difficult to keep clean and keep from clogging. So the staff actually welded together a larger one that was easier to clean, and that's what they're using right now. There's also no retaining wall around the septic receiving station, so any sewage spills can easily escape and head toward the Animas River. Design for the project was completed this year, and the construction is proposed for 2025. The improved station will allow for multiple offloads at one time, increase the ease for septic haulers and the collections and distribution crews, a larger debris screen to remove solids properly without frequent clogging, and a retaining wall to help prevent sewer spills from reaching the river. And septic will continue to be accepted by the wastewater plant during the construction. Okay. Sewer questions.
You know, I have one.
Okay.
Okay, so it says the weakness on your last presentation about the sewage and the, okay, it says we have to continue accepting septic waste during construction. Is that a rule? Is that a state rule, or is that just our policy?
Where else are they going to take it? We have to continue to accept it. So the septic haulers are offloading septic that they're getting from septic tanks around the county. And this is the place that they can take it to. So while that septic receiving station is going to be closed during construction, we do have a way of taking it up to the start of the plant so that they can offload it there. Did that answer the question? Okay.
I'm sorry, I have so many questions today. The sewer replacement that's near Island Cove, that it's going to go to a 6 to a 10-inch line. How about how many homes will that impact?
All the homes that are on that sewer service. So although those are the ones sitting right on top of the line, this entire neighborhood flows into that lift station.
So they wouldn't have access to use the sewer or anything going down drains. Is that my understanding?
During construction, no.
During construction.
The sewer services will be disconnected.
Do we have an anticipated timeline potentially about how long those folks would be impacted?
Not right now.
Okay. And then is there any sort of protocol for, I know we're going to give out rec passes and I'm sure do as much as we can. Is there any sort of like protocol for like any sort of people that are mobility impaired that might be, you know, have a challenge to get out to the rec center? I mean, are we?
Yeah,
gonna...
we try to meet with all of the homeowners prior to construction and identify the needs of the homeowners and accommodate as best we can.
That's awesome. That's really good to know. Thank you. And then, bless you. The pumps that are too large, is there a way to downsize from 3 to 2 pumps, or do we need to go to a smaller pump? And then another question would be, are we going to keep those larger pumps to be able to facilitate growth if need be?
I'm unaware of what we're going to do with those pumps once they're taken offline, but typically only one pump runs at a time. And so even with one pump online, it's too much. It's way oversized for the need that we have.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then the concrete liner replacement, are we going to be able to recoup any costs for the person or the company that installed it?
Unfortunately not. The warranty for the original liner was only 1 year, and that's typical for contractors. So with Spectra Shield, with this contract that we currently have, the wastewater treatment plant manager went through a lot to make sure that the warranty would last much longer than 1 year. I believe he told me that it was 10 years, but we'd have to double check on that
Okay.
for the warranty.
Typical contractors. Thank you.
Any other questions?
Any other questions? Excellent. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Yes.
Okay, Parks and Rec is up next.
Good afternoon, Mayor and Council. Scott McLean, the Assistant Parks Director. We'll be talking about the 2005 and the Parks and Recreation 2015 funded projects. So to start with, on 2005, the first project is an annual project. This helps cover our maintenance costs and it for parks and open space projects that have occurred since the 2005 tax went into effect. We have kind of unit costs that we put to square footage that then help determine just and helps cover just our day-to-day maintenance costs on those facilities that we've built with the 2005 fund. The next project is our irrigation replacement at Greenmount Cemetery. This is a continuation. If you recall, we had funding for 2024 for design and construction. We've been working on design and are in a place to do the first phase as we started working on getting into the details, looking at sequencing and scheduling. It made sense to divide this project into two phases. The first being the water line replacement from the Animas River up to the cemetery. The cemetery is irrigated with raw water. The water line that's in place is aged beyond its useful life, so we want to get that taken care of. This also helped us when we had the opportunity with Buckley Park to have the additional funding we needed to acquire Buckley. So the year 2025, we're set up to go to bid for the water line, and then following years be in a good place to tie the irrigation to that new water line. The next project is an annual project that we use to provide maintenance to our parks and rec facilities. This is kind of beyond the general maintenance that we do, but replacing items. Historically, we've used this for replacing dated playground systems, providing ADA improvements to our parks, just larger upgrades than fit in our general fund budget. This year, 2023, we completed a parks inventory facility assessment that kind of helps us prioritize what needs to be addressed first. So what we're looking at for projects this year is resurfacing the tennis courts at Jenkins Ranch Park, replacing the ball field fencing at Folsom Park, and then we identified 7 parks that have park furniture, the benches and the tables that are dated, they're in bad shape, pulling those out and replacing with new. Similar to that fund, we also have this fund request, which has been an annual, but is geared more towards our open space natural surface trails, ongoing maintenance in the open space. This helps cover our commitment or our portion partnership with grants for fire mitigation. So we have some fire mitigation work that will continue this fall and into next year through grants. It helps with weed mitigation, revegetation, trail maintenance, and new trail construction in the open space and soft surface trails. Along with that, we have the $40,000. It's an annual request for Durango Trails. This is partnership with Durango Trails. Beginning of the year, we typically get together with them, develop a work plan, what they see as priority, what we do, prioritize that, and that also helps with trail maintenance and new trail construction. Great opportunity for partnership, getting volunteers involved in the open space, and then being having some ownership in the open space. The Smart 160 trail is a continuation. This project's been going on for a number of years. This is one of the projects that we had a fund previously appropriated for design and construction. This is a piece to continue design into 25. It initially had awarded that contract like 4 years ago, so we've had some scope change just as far as exploring different options and getting through private property and looking at different alternatives. And then also some of the subs consultants rates have increased over that time period, so this increase helps cover that. Durango Mesa Park is another project where for 24, we had one general project that kind of covered a lot of different pieces. So the next number of projects are Durango Mesa, but more specific pieces of that. Some of those were in 2005, and then we also have some of those in the 2015 tax. The first one is the hub development. If you've been up in the Horse Gulch or the demonstration trails, most of the hub is completed. So a little bit of work that we're going to finish this year, need to pay for in the beginning of next year, and looking at making the service road that we put in there. This will help provide vehicle access to the top where the hub is. One of the flow trails was designed to provide for hand bikes. So this will provide opportunity if we have a special event or somebody needed access, they could drive up to the top of the trails and then have access to do laps there with a hand type bike. The next piece we have for Durango Mesa Park is the bike park design. This is ongoing at this point. Some of the construction work for the bike park will be happening this fall. Remainder of it will be happening next year. So this is getting those plans completed and then having design support for the bike park into next year. We have 2.4 million requested for bike park development. Again, this year we're doing planning to get service road to the area where the bike park will be, looking at trying to get the connector trail done, and then doing some kind of large scale grading work to get some of the mass earthwork done, and then get into the details of it next year. And then this is a continuation, $75,000 with Durango Mesa Park to help pay for maintenance of facilities that we're developing there. This was a fund that we started last year that was completion of the demonstration trails, sharing costs with Durango Mesa Foundation, and maintaining the trails that have been built. And then the person brought on also has been helping a lot with the project management and getting things laid out for the bike park. This is kind of a transition until we get more facility built out there and can start to work into city, bringing on staff and having resources to do maintenance if that's the direction we go. And then we have 1.7 million that goes to the infrastructure for the access. So this would include the egress road. The egress road is currently in construction. Most of that should be completed this year. Next year, we will have some follow-up revegetation, stormwater management that we need to complete. It also goes towards the Highway 3 improvements. So working with CDOT, we have put turn lanes in to provide for the larger events that are anticipated. The access road going from Highway 3 up to the top of the hill, and then the water line, 8-inch line that goes, Parks is paying for the 8-inch line, which will essentially run from Horse Gulch trailhead up to the end of the road. And then the water is covering the upgrade that Laura talked about that gets us to the 18-inch line that will provide for future service use, Three Springs and that area. With that, any questions on the 2005 tax?
Any questions? Woodruff?
Sorry. The Durango Mesa infrastructure, is the Durango Mesa Foundation, are they helping provide any sort of infrastructure funds? I know there was talk about the Katz family investing more money into the infrastructure. Or is there some cost sharing?
So yes, the projects with Durango Mesa are a cost share agreement. So the water line we're paying for, that's not, but the highway improvements, the egress road and the road up the hill are a cost share.
Awesome. Thank you.
And on Durango Mesa Park as well. For some of those, these are all continuation of projects.
Right.
So we've seen these numbers before, but they're in the budget for 2025. So can you explain that to me? Because I know I've seen the 1.7 before. I've seen these numbers.
Yes. So in 24, we had 4.2 million that was for these same projects, but all in one group. So this is split those out into those pieces. We've also added 10% for contingency, 5% for our oversight construction management this year, and received some numbers through this year that have made us push up cost estimates for the road, some of those pieces.
But I'm sorry, can you explain that to me further? So we had 4.2 in 2024. We had allocated that?
Correct.
So the addition really, because I totaled these, it's like 4.6, is just really an extra only 400,000. Is that correct?
So majority, I think we were looking at spending just over $1 million at Durango Mesa Park in 24. We had originally anticipated the access road being under construction this summer. The consultant, the engineer that's putting together those plans, reached out to some contractors. Again, we were in that kind of spring, early summer schedule to go out to bid and got feedback that we were not likely going to get very competitive bids at that point if we could get bids. So we're in a position to have that bid this fall and be set for next year. So some of those funds that we're not going to use in 24, this would be a reappropriation request to have those funds available in 25.
So we're just seeing them again, but it's a continuation of projects. These are not new projects. I'm seeing all these are continuation. Funds have previously been allocated, but not spent. So we're just pulling them forward.
So there's
Is that the
a
correct?
bit of both. I mean, and a lot of
A
it
little bit
is
of both.
a
Okay.
portion of 24 that reappropriating to 25, stuff that was in design this year and then getting ready to build. The other portion is stuff that was scheduled to be built in 25 that wasn't included in the 24 bid. So the bike park, for instance, we had some number in there for initial work there, but not for the full build out.
Interesting. Okay, thank you. I think
Yes.
that's helpful.
The Smart 160 design, are you anticipating that the entire design will be done next year?
So this would not be the entire design that we are pushing this into 4 phases.
Okay.
So right now we are working on kind of the first phase, which would be the one that connects into River Road and 160. Trying to have the 90% plans by end of September. But making that our focus is to try to get that to a place where we can get it out to bid. And at the same time, working through some of the specifics through the Gilliland property to make sure that we have the route that we need through there. And then we'll have to come back for additional funds for construction of the first phase and then looking at design for the future phases. But
How many
those
phases do you
we're
think?
anticipating 4, and our initial design scope was for the entire length, but we've kind of reprioritized to get them one piece. Let's get this ready to bid.
And so phase 1, you think will be ready to bid next year?
Correct.
Okay. Sorry, we got a lot of questions
Yep,
on this one.
Understand?
Is the BMX park part of the bike park? The BMX trail? Or
It
not?
is not at this point, just because of where we're at with funding, yes.
Okay.
So future year.
Cool.
Yeah.
All right, thank you.
Okay, so from there, I will jump into the 2015, the Parks and Rec projects within that fund. The first project or request is an annual request. This is for maintenance of our recreation facilities and multimodal facilities. Again, just helps cover the general maintenance of facilities that we have developed and keeping those in good condition. So this is Durango Mesa Park. Into the 2015 tax fund, we have 333,000. This is a continuation, completion design for the infrastructure, which again will be the road access, water line portions. And then $2 million for the infrastructure development, which is yet so a total cost of 3.7 for infrastructure development, 2 million from here and the 1.7 in the 2005 tax. Chapman Ski Hill improvements. This project is in progress. This is a continuation. The funds are to cover work that would happen either the end of the year, need to be paid, invoiced the beginning of the year, and then some additional work in the spring. The project is on schedule with lifts, plans for lifts, lighting, all that to be complete prior to ski season. There'll be a little bit of work that needs to happen spring after ski season. Part of that again will be revegetation of the ski hill. There's some earthwork that needs to happen at the base of the hill that brings the grade up a little bit to provide a better loading experience at the bottom lift. And then also helps collect stormwater so that as the snow melts off the hill, that we've got a high point at the bottom that helps get that to the stormwater drain as opposed to running down Florida. Animas River Trail, we have 3 sections that we're in design engineering this year we have budget for. So this is a continuation. And this is for sections of trail that were asphalt, they're dated, are rough and need replacement. The first section is Santa Rita Park to the spur that's between Albertsons and Doubletree. Design plans were completed for this late spring, early summer. It went out to bid early summer. We did not receive any bids. Reached out to contractors that we typically work with after the bid period, and feedback we received was that it was too late in the season. They were committed, their subs were committed, didn't feel comfortable on a project of this size. So we're in position to have this bid this fall and hope that we have better results with the response. The second section of Animas River Trail is the piece between 29th Street and Memorial Park to the Demon Bridge and including replacement of the Demon Bridge. This we reviewed the 90% plan, so we're finishing up the design work. We've got 100,000 requested for continuation into the 25. This will provide for any design completion that needs to occur, and then also for environmental surveys. Typically, the environmental surveys have a time limit; they'll expire. If we get something done this summer, it may not be, it'll expire and we'll need to do it again next summer. So it makes sense just to wait until we're closer to bid and construction to do those. And then same scenario for the section of River Trail from Santa Rita that extends from Santa Rita Park south to County Road 210, which is the spur up to Nature's Oasis. This also includes a bridge replacement below the highway bridge. That bridge has a water line that it supports, the city water line, and then also multiple fiber lines. So still working through some design effort. We have reviewed the 90% plans, but still some design coordination on relocation, working with the fiber companies on getting those lines and what that'll look like. Lake Nighthorse, the entry and decontamination station. This is the project that's in progress. The entry is providing new entry buildings. It's also kind of restructuring the entry to the park, where the way it's currently laid out, the entry station does not provide for much backing room or stacking room off the county road. So we're moving that in closer to the decontamination station, so that gives more space for stacking. It also makes it easier, so there's not as much space between the entry booth and the decontamination, a little more central place for staff to be more efficient, so we're not having to travel as far between points to do different tasks. The city, as part of us being the recreation manager, we're responsible for doing the inspections and decontaminations for aquatic nuisance species. The unit that we acquired from Bureau of Reclamation when we started at the lake is very finicky, takes quite a bit of time to make sure that we have water at right temperature. The new system is kind of the latest that Colorado Parks and Wildlife is using, so it should be a huge improvement for staff. A little bit of office space there, more than just the temporary shacks or sheds that we have at this point. That's anticipated to be largely complete by end of the year. Some work probably extending into the first of the year, and then again some landscaping vegetation that will happen in the springtime. The next project also up at Lake Nighthorse, and this is paving the access road from the entry station to the boat ramp and the gravel or overflow parking lot. This is largely being funded through a federal highways grant. It's a FLAP program, or Federal Lands Access, that Highways was interested in providing better recreational access to facilities. So it's about 0.8 miles of road. This will be drainage improvements, base course improvement and paving, and then paving the gravel lot. The total estimated project is 5.2 million. The city's share of that is 1.25. We've spent 140,000 on the scoping and design portion of it. And then we have 1.1 million, or just over 1.1 million due in 25. Federal Highways will administer this project, so they'll put it out to bid in 25. It's currently scheduled for construction in 26. There may be a little bit of leeway there, and that they have some other projects that they're managing that may get bumped a year, which may let us bump up a bit. At the Recreation Center, new project requesting $380,000 for replacement of a HVAC rooftop unit, provides the air conditioning for the gymnasium space. So over its 20-year lifespan, having some issues with it this summer. So the replacement is a new unit that then provides a comfortable environment for patrons to the gymnasium and the rec center. At Chapman Hill Ice Rink, new project for replacing the snow melt pit heater and the bleacher heater, request for $66,000. The snow melt pit is essentially the ice rink. The Zamboni scrapes the ice, treats it, all the shavings go outside in a pile. The current setup is there's a heater with the refrigeration unit. It only runs when the refrigeration unit is running. Being wintertime and being an outdoor covered rink, we don't need the refrigeration that much. So the heat doesn't run very well or effective with the pit we have. So this is a new unit that we can control when the heater runs, will help get rid of that attractive nuisance and then just minimize time that staff has to take a piece of equipment over there and move the ice melt shavings to another location. And then the bleacher heater, the ice rink itself is not heated. So it's just a small unit that provides heat to the bleachers and the spectators there. Next project is asphalt paving maintenance for the parking lots at both the Recreation Center and at Chapman Hill. And the request for that is $100,000, and that is a new project. And then our final project is a request for $50,000 for the Community Forest Management Plan. This has been an annual request to just help get additional trees planted and then take care of the trees we have within the city. We're should be wrapping up the forestry management plan update by end of year. And again, that plan will help us prioritize how we use our resources in those directions. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Devin for the multimodal projects, and I'll stay up front here. So if there's questions, we can get all the 2015 at the same time.
Good afternoon, Madam Mayor, City Council, Devin King, Multimodal Manager. I'm here to present on our CIP projects. So starting off, going to talk about Camino Crossing. This is an underpass near 12th Street of Camino del Rio. We started design in 2021 and it was budgeted, and basically we kind of put the project on pause while DFPD looked at the new fire station to make sure that we could coordinate with their design. Now that they have finished that up, we are hoping to restart design later this year. And so it is just a continuation of funds. And I will say that we have been very active in applying for grants and other funding sources. So even though we haven't been necessarily spending money on the design itself, we have been very active working with DFPD and looking for other funding sources because we know that this will be a pretty expensive construction project. But as far as, you know, strengths, it improves connectivity to downtown, and we've been talking a lot with BID, and they have a lot of interest in this project. So we're looking forward to continuing that project in 2025. College and 8 Safety Project. You've heard a lot this evening from others about this project, but also about getting bids with other projects. So College and 8th is a grant funded project. We have a little over $1 million in grant funding. We were just awarded another about $400,000 for this project. So you'll see that number up there is around $3.5 million. The first few times this project went out for bids, we didn't receive any. That was during COVID. We did, similar to Scott, we reached out to local contractors and asked, why. They gave us some suggestions on the project scope, so we did update the scope. And then last year it went out to bid with the updated scope of the mill and overlay, and we did receive a bid. However, it was over our allotted budget for construction, and so that's similar to other projects that were bid last year. It was over budget partly because of when we put it out. So we're working on putting it out later this month, which should help us a little bit bring down costs. But we have also secured additional funding. So we have streets funding that is added to this amount that will help us get to the construction bid amount. But again, this project is implementing a reconfiguration of College and 8th Avenue. So what that means is we're dropping from 4 lanes to 3. That puts in buffered bike lanes. It also is adding sidewalk and getting the transit stops to be out of the travel lane. So it helps us reduce crashes in this area. And then improves connectivity for pedestrians and cyclists. The Midtown Safety and Connectivity Project, staff will be presenting to you later this evening at the regular meeting and providing an update about the project, so I won't go into too much of that, but the project is designing traffic calming features, accessible curb and sidewalks, and a two-way cycle track on East 2nd Avenue, as well as we have looked at improvements to the 15th, Florida, and 3rd intersection. This is again a continuation of funds. We've been heavy in the design process for the last few years. Started off with a traffic study, and we just had recently a 60% public meeting. And at this point, we're getting close to entering into the final stages of design, which I will present on later this evening, and then we'll probably be finishing up somewhere in 2025. So the North Main ADA Improvements Project, that is the sidewalk and transit stop improvement from 17th Street all the way to Animas View Drive on North Main. So we've received $4.5 million worth of grant funding for this project. We've been in the process. We finished up the preliminary design, presented that to the public back in June, and now we are entering into the contract for the final design. So this funding is to complete the final design of the project as well as right-of-way acquisition. There are some areas where we're going to need temporary easements as well as permanent right-of-way, which we've been in discussion with those businesses and will continue over the next year and a half or so. So this is, again, a continuation of these funds to finish out the design of that project, and then construction will likely be in 2026. So it will take us a full year to get through the final design and right-of-way acquisition. It's a very long project scope. Downtown's next step. Again, this is a continuation specifically of phase 1 and phase 2 funds that have already been budgeted for 2024. And then it is an addition of funds for phase 3. I will note that phase 2 and 3, we have been awarded grant funding from DOLA. So that's the Department of Local Affairs, that gives us basically $640,000 for that $800,000. So really it's just $160,000 that we would be spending on these final 2 phases. The other thing is with us getting completed on design, we've heard a lot from the public and businesses that they really want to see a cost estimate for the project. Unfortunately, at this point, we don't even have the scope as far as what we're actually improving fully dialed in at this point, because we're still in the 30% design, and also it's only for 2 blocks. So finishing the full design for the entire corridor will provide us a engineering cost estimate that will further, give us exactly what we're looking at as far as a price tag, and that will include utilities as well. So getting that design all the way through gives us that cost estimate that we can then provide to everybody and then talk about funding and other strategies at that point. But again, this project is accessibility and pedestrian improvements on Main Avenue from 5th to 14th Street. And then the Rusa Connect. This project, again, has grant funding like several of our other projects. And so we are continuing the funds. We have been updating the design plan. So this project was originally designed back in 2017 through 2019. And then it fell out of prioritization through the Multimodal Advisory Board. But since then it has come back online for priority, mainly due to the fact that the grant funding sunsets in 2027. So we kind of need to get this one done. However, when we went back and looked at the design, CDOT's requirements have changed. So we actually had to update the design to meet the requirements. And then while we were doing that, we also just made updates because, I think we have a better understanding of how this will connect with other projects. So we were able to design some pieces and elements of it as well. So we're finishing up that design this year, going to CDOT for final review. And so we are still planning on construction in 2025. So that's why it's a continuation of those funds. The West Park Avenue traffic calming project, that was budgeted for 2024. Again, this is a continuation. We started that project in the summer. We had our first neighborhood meeting. This is really a neighborhood-driven project. It's looking at traffic calming treatments for West Park Avenue, so just between West 3rd Avenue and Main Avenue. So it's a pretty short section of road. However, we know that it's a huge connection point for cyclists and pedestrians. The swinging bridge downtown onto West Park Avenue. Fastbinder Park is a popular park. So really it's providing connectivity in there. And so we're just looking at completing the design in 2025. So far it is on progress, and we look forward to bringing that project to fruition in 2025. And that ends multimodal projects. Any questions?
Yes, I think we have some questions. I'll start real quick. The downtown next steps.
Yes.
The phase 3 is all grant funding.
Correct.
No city funds will be used for phase 3.
No, and most of phase 2, even though it's already been budgeted, would also be grant funds.
But
Yes.
phase 1 and 2, we've already kind of approved and been through,
Correct.
right? So
Yes.
I was mostly referring to like what's left that we haven't talked
Can I
about.
just say one thing on that? Because I
Yeah.
think that's a really good
Yeah.
point. If there was a way to show in these, each of these items, how much was for grant funding, how much was being attributed towards grant funding, it would be really helpful, because in this case, it's showing what it looks like $1 million of our funding, but in reality, it's $160,000. That's a huge difference, and I think the public needs to be very well aware of that, because that is substantial for this, and for several other, also the airport, so I don't know if there's a way that we can show it, but I think it would be an interesting ad for the public.
Yeah, I think we were with the
I had to
finance team.
clarify that a few times with people on the phone, so just wanted to clarify it here as well.
Good.
And then you mentioned in the next steps meeting that we had last week that you were looking at like the design, so the design phases right now, and you mentioned, I think in your presentation, I believe it was you, that said we're looking at not reducing the size of lanes anymore.
Correct.
Okay, so people want to see that. They're like, he said it, but how real is it? Does that make sense? Like they want to see that in the design. And so with this design phase that's taking us through to get us those numbers that we really want, so we can make great city council decisions that are educated and well informed, would it include those options, like seeing the lanes not change and
it would
length and
yes
stuff? Okay, great, making sure. And then I had one more question on that. It's going to come to me, maybe not. Maybe I'll come back to that. And then, oh, yeah, I remember now. So you said the utilities will be included in the cost. So we'll have a utilities number.
Yes, it will be included in the cost estimate. So utilities right now, that portion of the project is funded separately outside of this. But basically they're kind of waiting for this project because we can't determine exactly the utility locations until we know exactly where the sidewalk's going to be, et cetera. So we kind of need all the pieces to be solved before we can get all the design.
Great,
complete.
but in the end, before we were to make any decision as a council, we would have utilities number, curb and gutter number, next steps potential number, with maybe some options.
The whole
package.
Yes.
Maybe like a parking garage number thrown in there for good measure to make everyone happy, because that's what we do.
I don't have an answer.
All right, just kind of kidding. All right, thanks. Go ahead, Councilor Woodruff. Oh, you're good. You don't have any questions. That's weird. Okay, anyone? All right, we're done. Back to Scott.
So I do have just some comments, just generally, maybe Jose, to you, if I could, on this whole process, I guess. Not really, but one of the things I thought that would also be helpful in the future when we're looking at this, possibly at another time when we're looking at approving the budget, more in our city council meetings, it might be really helpful for us to also see if we could possibly the long-term capital project list. So we could see also what's heading out for 5 to 10 years. For example, the Animas River Trail Connect. So we can see where those are in this process. It would just be helpful. We're looking at 1 year here, but if we could simultaneously in the future, when we're looking at it and approving it, understand where the other projects lie as well.
Sure.
Just so we could see both the whole, understand the big picture.
Right. And since you mentioned that, I'd like to add on to that. Maybe the same thing with Santa Rita contamination, reclamation center, because it just seems like we just did that and now we need to replace stuff there. So maybe if we had a long-term, like how long this thing will last, and since we're doing like replacing the pumps already, because the public doesn't understand the fact that we just paid, you know, it just seems like we just upgraded that thing and now we got to work on it again.
Go ahead.
Yeah, that particular part was definitely an unforeseen circumstance where we have a brand new facility and we're already upgrading and replacing things in it. So like I said, with the wastewater treatment plant manager, ensuring that warranties moving forward are longer than 1 year, that we can go back to them. And if there is a failure at year 2 or 3, they're on the hook for replacing it.
Alrighty, so do you do retainage of 1 year? Like, you know, when I was in construction, they would always hold a retainage till, you know, a couple years after completion of the project of 10%. Do you guys do that?
The typical warranties that we're encountering with contractors is limited to 1 year. And it's almost difficult to find contractors that are having warranties that are longer than 1 year. On the retainage issue, I don't think I can answer that. Potentially the people I brought with me. There you go, Devin.
Hi, good afternoon. So as far as retainage goes for our contractors, we typically hold a portion of each invoice for retainage. Then we run final settlements out to any of the subcontractors that may have participated as part of that project. We do the 95% punch completion list, and then that's when we release that retainage. We typically don't hold on to we just hold on to it for the project duration until they reach that percentage that is complete.
So a couple more for Jose. So some of the things I think that going forward, I would love to see when we're looking at this in a council meeting, perhaps. First is that long-term capital projects list. Second, if we could see totals per fund, you know, just a whole spreadsheet on exactly where all the funds are, you know, where the money's going in each fund. And then as part of that total for fund, breaking out so we can understand which funds are also funded or which projects are funded with grant funding, to separate that. Those separations I think would be helpful for everyone to understand. And then my last question is, I didn't see stuff on the lodgers tax funding. Is that not, you know, CIP projects for
These
that?
are CIP projects only, so we don't have any lodgers tax funding CIP projects, I believe.
I was thinking
The
of
only
like,
piece that we might have that we will have coming back for reconciliation could potentially be common threads unless they
That's the
finish
one
it this
with-
year.
here, yes.
Yes, unless that is completed this year, which it could be.
Okay, so that would be the only capital project in the lodgers tax funding.
So we'll do something similar as we did at the budget retreat where we bring forward council determination requests. So you may see additional requests that could be capital projects, but that'll be brought forward during your council retreat so that you're able to go through and see all those council determination requests from departments. And then in reconciliation, we can go through and pick up any of the projects that you all would like to see funded.
Okay, and you just brought up another issue that I had another question with. The capital projects, the departments are preparing rankings for those projects, I'm understanding. And if we could see those rankings as part of this or understand where projects lie in terms of potential funding, especially now that it was a different process in the past than it is today. And so I am still curious about some of those rankings.
Sounds good.
Where projects lie, I guess.
Yes, and the other piece that we will be doing as part of the adopted budget is having all of our goal teams by strategic plan area go through and look at the projects. So for safety and quality of life, that goal team would go through and look at all of the projects that are parks and recreation. And so they'll go through and do their ranking as well of those projects.
Part of the budget retreat. Is that what?
That will be, if I said part of the budget retreat, a lot of our teams would be a little bit frustrated with me from the workload perspective, but that will be part of the adopted budget. Next year,
Okay.
we plan to incorporate as part of the proposed budget.
Okay. Helpful. Curious. Thank you.
Yeah. I did have one timeline slide, if that's helpful for council, just to close it out. So on September 5th, the Financial Advisory Board will review any reconciled projects. So because the departments send these projects to us in June, obviously certain things can change throughout that process. So these will go back to the Financial Advisory Board for anything that they have not weighed in on for recommendation. Then on the September 17th, we'll bring forward an operational budget amendment for 2024. October 14th is that budget retreat. We will do a request for a public hearing at the October 15th meeting. November 5th, we'll do the study session for reconciliation and then later have that public hearing for the budget. And then on November 19th will be first consideration for council, and then December 3rd would be second consideration and mill levy certification.
Excellent. Any other questions from people? All right. We'll adjourn this meeting and see you back here at 5:30.